Of the many game design elements From Software will be eternally remembered for, the bosses of its Soulsborne games will surely be at the top of the list. Beyond just challenging monstrosities, each boss is an intricate, unique work of art. Well, perhaps not you, Bed of Chaos. Some are puzzles, others are tests of endurance, and a few are even cinematic set pieces. A small handful are gatekeepers, practical exams that demand you demonstrate your combat learnings before being allowed to continue. These are among the fiercest, most challenging fights, and while they may feel punishing in the moment, they provide valuable lessons to carry with you for the rest of the experience. Margit the Fell Omen, Elden Ring's first major boss, is one of these gatekeepers, and he stands proudly alongside From Software's best early game foes. Margit is not just a boss battle, but a practical demonstration of how Elden Ring's many ideas tie together in a cohesive whole. Exploration leads to discoveries, discoveries unlock tactics, and tactics assure victory. Let's take an in-depth look at how all of Elden Ring's complex design principles come together in one single fight. This is Art of the Level.
In search of the Elden Ring. Emboldened by the flame of ambition.
The Gatekeeper boss is a long tradition in From Software games. Some, like Margit himself, quite literally guard a gate. The hideously mutated Fell Omen stands in front of the only route into Stormveil Castle, the first of Elden Ring's main questline legacy dungeons. In this way, he's similar to Dark Souls 3's Eudex Gundyr, who stands ahead of the gates to Firelink Shrine, the vital central hub of Lothric. But when we use the term Gatekeeper, we usually mean it metaphorically. These are the bosses who guard the game, rather than the location. Best in them proves you've learned all the skills required up until that point to survive in the hostile lands that await beyond. Often they are positioned as the first major boss, but some appear much later in the game in order to assess your progress over several hours of play. Perhaps From Software's best example of this is Sekiro's Genichiro Ashina, a relentless battle that demands near-perfect mastery of the parry system. As the first main boss in Elden Ring, Margit is a gentler test. He's the high school midterms to Genichiro's SAT. But that makes him no less important. Margit is a vital introduction to Elden Ring's boss fight mechanics. But before diving into Margit's fight itself, it's important to give it the context of where and how players enter into the battle, as he's not actually the first big fight you can encounter. Limgrave, the first explorable location of the lands between, is littered with optional bosses. Each one cumulatively develops your ability to deal with enemies that are highly aggressive, use a complex array of moves, and must be fought in confined spaces with no escape. While these bosses may technically be optional, Elden Ring's non-linear open-world design encourages you to seek out these challenges as a way to prepare yourself for Margit. Fighting the Fell Omen right off the bat is almost certainly doomed to end in failure, and so you begin to seek opportunities in the world to make you stronger and more proficient. Bloodhound Knight Dariwyl, for example, is a great education in reacting to relentless and complex attack patterns. The Mad Pumpkinhead, locked in Waypoint Ruins, trains you to fight large creatures in small areas. In this way, Margit's Gatekeeper status not only encourages you to prepare for boss battles, but also pushes you to thoroughly engage with From Software's new open-world design. The fight against Margit demands use of all of the skills you've accumulated during Elden Ring's first hours, but pushes your abilities to their early level limits. The Fell Omen is faster than anything you've fought so far, has more complex moves, and can chain attacks together in unpredictable ways. This battle demands you recontextualize your prior learnings, rethinking how you can apply a dodge or even make use of distance. As such, Margit is as much a training exercise as he is a combat exam, even if From Software does its collective damnedest to never make the fight feel like a tutorial. But Margit was built to be both tough and fair, and there are several important elements to this fight that make him a perfectly surmountable introduction to not just Elden Ring, but the wider world of Soulsborne boss fights.
Well, thou art of passing skill. Warrior blood must flow through my veins.
The first of these essential elements is the location in which the fight takes place, a cobblestone path that leads to Stormville Castle's front gate. Margit's arena is a combat runway, and like a runway, its most important feature is that it's uncluttered. These pockets of swords and spears that act as set dressing put up minimal resistance, collapsing as you strike or roll through them. It means you have near complete freedom of movement, allowing you to easily circle Margit and widen your distance unhindered. The lack of terrain-dominating architecture such as pillars or tombstones means you also have practically uninterrupted vision over the battle. That advantage is clear from the moment you walk through the fog gate, with the arena's slight incline providing a perfect view from the very start. Save for turning your back on him, this design means you have a clear sight of every move Margit makes. This clean arena design does come with a sting in its tail though. The aged clifftop path that leads across Stormvale's moat has no walls on either side of it, and so there's nothing to stop you tumbling off into the bottomless void. One misjudged dodge, a panicked roll, or an overwhelming blow from Margit can cause you plummet into your doom. You have to be constantly cognizant about two threats: death by drop and murder by monster.
These foolish ambitions to rest.
Thankfully, the design of the arena and your camera's field of view ensures the rocky, grass-lined edges are always clear to see. The cobblestone path that runs down the center communicates the safest spot to be. If you've stepped beyond its boundaries, then you know you're just a few feet away from falling. Not that staying within those boundaries is easy, of course. Margit is blisteringly fast. Despite his hulking form, he moves with astonishing speed, closing distances with terrifying leaps and using wild pirouettes to damage anything in an arc around him. But while all of this lightning-quick aggression generates a sense of fear, Margit is designed to be easily read, exploited, and defeated. Most From Software bosses can be read like books. Through use of identifiable animations, you learn what attacks a boss intends to use next and react accordingly. This approach is cemented into From Software's DNA, and the developer often uses it to toy with our expectations. A slow, wind-up animation can lead into a flurry of unexpected fast blows, while casual light strikes are sometimes followed up by surprisingly lethal finishes. Often a boss will strike a beat later than the animation initially suggests, turning your seemingly well-timed dodge into a deadly stumble. Committing these animations and their resulting attacks to memory is a vital part of playing a From Software game, and the battle against the Fell Omen is no different. Margit's main weapon is his wooden staff. It strikes quickly, but before each blow comes a slow, exaggerated animation. The extended duration of these animations make it easy to react a little too soon, but thankfully the form of each one does signal exactly what Margit is going to do. This pose, in which Margit draws his staff high above his head, indicates that he is about to slam his weapon straight down. It's a warning that you'll need to dodge either to the left or right, or be prepared to brace your shield for a block. This animation, however, when Margit pulls the staff around his shoulder as if he's about to play ball, indicates that he's going to swing the weapon in a horizontal arc. In terms of a dodge, there's nowhere safe in Margit's immediate vicinity. That swing covers more than 200 degrees, and so that initial animation instructs you that you need to fall back. It's a technique Margit uses to force space and distance into the encounter. That lesson's importance cannot be understated. Engagement distance is essential to Soulsborne fights. Many character builds are focused on melee combat, which require you to be positioned close to the target to deal damage. An enemy that can force you out of melee range demands patience and persistence as you reposition to strike again. Distance doesn't offer respite though, and so even the likes of archers and casters don't have an advantage. As well as his ability to leap towards you to close the distance, Margit reinforces the concept that bosses can be skilled at both ranged and melee combat, something you may have had a taste of in optional confrontations such as that against the Bell-bearing Hunter. With meters between you, Margit will summon light daggers he can throw across the arena. They often come in pairs, throwing with a gap between them that's just long enough to allow a dodge roll. Recognizing these kind of opportunities built into the attacks and combos is the key to success here, and in every subsequent boss fight. Veteran Souls players, for instance, will instinctively recognize that Margit's staff is a physical melee weapon. and can thus be exploited with a well-timed parry that can be followed up with a hugely damaging riposte. With his arsenal, ferocious speed, and simple yet deadly battlefield, Margit is quite clearly a league ahead of most of Elden Ring's early optional bosses. But the big difference between main bosses and those found in caves and catacombs is another Soulsborne boss staple: the two-phase system.
Thou art of passing skill.
When wounded enough, Margit will begin to fight with more intensity, chaining together extra moves and making it increasingly difficult to counter his blows. Later bosses have more extreme second phases. Stormville's castle's master, Godric, quite literally tears the head of a dragon and uses it as a flamethrower to initiate his new phase. But Margit introduces the concept with an almighty blow from his colossal holy hammer. This shining mallet does a staggering amount of damage in a radius around the area it strikes, making it a centerpiece attack to be avoided at all costs. Thankfully, the rules established in Phase 1 remain. Margit warns that his hammer strike is coming. The swing and leap animation, which leaves him hanging in the air anime style, provides a precious second to react. However, the lesson here is that sometimes moving towards danger is the best option. While dodging backwards will just about escape the reach of the blast, you should actually roll forward through the attack. Timed right, this will let you make use of invincibility frames, a few moments during a roll where you take no damage despite the weapon crashing through you. Avoiding damage is the important outcome, but this forward roll will perfectly position you within sword swinging range, ready to follow up with a punishing blow. It's one of the most powerful combat options, one you'll need to use often in fights to come. And so it's no surprise that the Margit fight encourages the technique during this early stage of Elden Ring. But not every attack has such a clear counter. In Phase 2, Margit is able to unleash long, complicated combos in which he swings with both his staff and a holy longsword. These attack chains are erratic, requiring you to dodge multiple times in succession and memorize a variety of potential patterns. This stage of the fight feels custom designed to emphasize the value of cooperative play, which Elden Ring places a higher value on than perhaps any Soulsborne game From Software has previously produced. Be they real players or NPC summons, an ally in this fight allows you to rebalance the burden of direct combat. By forcing Margit to pay attention to another fighter, you can strike several times with little fear of taking damage. As with most of Elden Ring's boss battles, the Margit fight allows you to use Summon and Ashes to manifest AI allies. This could be a pack of wolves who can mob Margit, or a spectral jellyfish that can inflict him with poison. But more importantly, this is the fight that first introduces NPC summons. Right outside the gate that leads to Margit is a golden summoning sign for Sorcerer Roger, a character who offers much more significant aid in this fight than mere wolves. But Roger is more than just a helping hand, he's also a useful education in posture. The sorcerer uses the Glint Blade Phalanx ability, a volley of magical daggers that chip away at Margit's posture. This is an invisible stat, but diminishing posture will cause the Fell Omen to stagger, opening up for a devastating critical hit. Once again, From Software uses another element of the fight against Margit to quietly educate you in Elden Ring's mechanics. Even if you're unaware, you should learn about it. Though co-op or NPC assistance has an arguably bigger role in Elden Ring, the Margit fight teaches you that this is by no means a surefire path to victory in which you can sit back and let some friends do the work for you. Should one character attack him while he's approaching the other, Margit will often suddenly spin to strike out at his attacker. It makes the fight something of a back and forth volley when played with other characters. But there is the opportunity of a short break, provided you've explored Limgrave thoroughly enough. Patches, the Soulsborne game's recurring trickster, will sell you a special item called Margit's Shackle. When used during the first phase of the fight, the Shackle will trap Margit for a few precious seconds, allowing you to score some free hits. It's a mechanic similar to the music box used in Bloodborne's Father Gascoigne fight, and serves an identical purpose. Proof that From Software rewards players who explore and properly prepare for upcoming trials. Spending time in the furthest reaches of the lands between will grant you with powerful weapons, talismans, and spells that could be the difference between life and death in Elden Ring's many boss battles. Margit's Shackle is a metaphor for that gameplay philosophy. You can get by without them, but they are built into the game precisely to be used, so long as you're intrepid enough of an explorer to find them. These many educational elements may perhaps trick you into thinking that the Margit fight quietly guides you to an easy victory, but the reality couldn't be further from the truth.
These foolish ambitions to rest.
Even with Elden Ring's many open-world lessons and the encouragement to use summoning, Margit is a challenging foe. It's unlikely you'll beat him on your first or second attempt. That's because this fight is based on the most fundamental From Software rule of them all: learning through failure. Discovering the intricate nature of Soulsborne combat comes through living, dying, and repeating the process. Pay careful attention to each attempt and you'll find each battle provides a new discovery that can be applied in the next life. Of all the lessons Margit teaches, this is the most important. Perception, patience, and persistence are the key tools that will take you to Elden Ring's highest heights. Despite the fierce resistance he puts up, Margit the Fell Omen is not Elden Ring's hardest boss, not by a long shot. In the moment that you face him though, he's a seemingly insurmountable foe. But it's not enough for Margit to just be the first imposing challenge. As the gatekeeper to the rest of Elden Ring, it's important that he works as a checklist for every major combat skill. Margit's ferocity forces you to assess the terrain upon which you duel, analyze his attack patterns, adjust between close and ranged clashes, and take advantage of his openings and tells. Elden Ring's open-world design means much of this will be familiar by the time you face him, but Margit is the entire combat experience in microcosm. It's here, on these broken cobbles, that you're forced to demonstrate that you can not only perform all of these skills, but that you understand how they work and how the rules must be reapplied in each new scenario. All this makes Margit a vital part of Elden Ring's introductory process, and victory over this first major roadblock ensures that he's a foe not easily forgotten, even as you ascend to the throne of Elden Lord. Thank you for watching this episode of Art of the Level. For more on From Software's creations, be sure to watch our breakdown of how Dark Souls' Undead Burg region teaches through suffering. And check out other episodes of Art of the Level for more developer insights and critical analysis of some of the best levels in gaming history.